Delayed by the COVID-19 outbreak in March, now set for the third week in May as the coronavirus is in retreat on the mainland. A slight easing in restrictions in the Philippines. Some provinces moved from tight to looser quarantine, but Metro Manila stays on the list of areas under enhanced community quarantine, with measures being extended until mid-May. And South Korea's surprised factory output in March zooms past expectations, expanding at its sharpest pace in more than a decade, as Asia's fourth largest economy takes advantage of disruptions in China because of the COVID-19 outbreak.
Quick business update for you. Now, oil prices moving back up. This is in response to U.S. stockpiles growing at a slower pace than expected. Hopes also grow that demand for product will pick up once European and U.S. cities move to ease their lockdowns. U.S. crude inventories rose at a slower pace than expected, rising by 10 million barrels. It's less than the 10.6 million barrels analysts had expected, and that's a sign maybe storages aren't filling quite as quickly in the U.S. WTI now is trading at about $14 a barrel, while the Brent crude is over $21 a barrel. Now, the impact of lower prices on one of the major producers, as Saudi Arabia's finance ministry reports the kingdom's oil revenues shrank 24% in the first 3 months of the year to about $35 billion. China's e-commerce giant JD.com has confidentially filed for a secondary listing in Hong Kong. The deal could raise at least $3 billion. The listing could come as soon as June. The firm is already trading on NASDAQ and has a market value of $64 billion. Like many e-commerce heavyweights, JD appears to have stayed resilient against the global pandemic's economic fallout. And demand for deliveries have soared with more people staying at home. The JD forecasts at least 10% revenue growth in the first quarter. Dismal figures coming out from Airbus. The plane maker's first quarter profit nearly halved. It plunged 49% to about $305 million. Revenue dropped 15% amid what some are calling the gravest crisis the aerospace industry has ever known. As of last month, Airbus suspended its profit outlook, scrapped its dividend, and negotiated new loans as the pandemic continues to cripple the aviation sector. Airbus says it would focus squarely on saving cash. Well, that's your business update this hour. Back to you, Angela.
All right, thank you so much, Liz. Well, in other news, employers in the Singapore construction industry have been stepping up efforts to care for their foreign workers, particularly those not living in the dormitories. That's after the Manpower Ministry and the Building and Construction Authority urged them to be treated responsibly during the circuit breaker period. But as Deborah Wong finds out, there may be more challenging for some.
When its construction workers on work permits and S-passes were issued stay-home orders, contractor KTC Group deployed staff to assist them right away. Less than 5% of their 1,800 workers live outside dorms.
Their meals provision, some of them because we can't deliver to them because they are scattered all over Singapore. So we provide subsidies for them. Basically, we provide a meal allowance for them to cater for their needs, for their daily 3 meals. If they require thermometer or masks, we also deliver to them.
Likewise, Wohab, which has over 2,000 foreign workers, checks in on the 16% who live outside dorms every day. They're given a daily allowance to buy groceries online and can count on a team of drivers to attend to any urgent needs. But workers in other companies may not be as lucky. Just last week alone, NGO Home received over 50 calls daily for assistance, some of whom were foreign workers living outside dorms, who said they didn't have access to food or wages. The association that represents contractors said the timing caught them off guard.
As the announcement came out very sudden, it came out on a Saturday evening to come into effect on a Sunday evening. So a lot of us, including myself, we were grappling with the challenges of organizing things to make sure that our employees, their well-being is taken care of, they get their food, they get their necessities. A lot of our members have exhausted their resources and perhaps maybe they face tremendous challenge in order to meet the needs.
One lawyer who specializes in the sector says cash flow is a critical factor, given that employers still need to pay for overhead costs, even as construction projects grind to a halt.
The consequence of this circuit breaker is that there is very little to no income for the contractors. Listed company with deep reserve will survive well at this hour, but for smaller contractors that depends on their income from project to project basis.
Still, Mr. Kung says firms need to comply with manpower laws and suggests they take up government reliefs like waivers for foreign worker levies or bank loans to cross this hurdle. In the meantime, SCEL says it's working with the Migrant Workers Centre to deliver aid to those in construction temporary quarters.
Nearly 2 years after 43 people died in a bridge collapse in Genoa, Italy, its replacement has been hailed as a symbolic show of unity and hope in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. Church bells tolled and foghorns blared as workers slotted in the final section of the nearly completed bridge. Construction of the structure has continued throughout the national lockdown as the country battled Covid-19. At a ceremony to mark the occasion, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte praised the bridge workers who are on course to complete the bridge by summer. And it's joy and relief for this 92-year-old World War II veteran from Russia after he left the hospital on Saturday having recovered from a COVID-19 infection. Ivan Bislayev, who contracted the virus earlier this month, said he never thought he would be discharged from the hospital given his age, and that he owes it all to the doctor who took care of him. While the coronavirus causes mild or moderate symptoms for most people, it can cause more severe illnesses in the elderly and people with existing health problems. And that's Asia Now. Thank you so much for watching. Do stay tuned for the headlines.
Blackest weather ever.
We are now at a critical phase in our fight against the virus.
190 new cases of COVID-19 reported in Singapore as of noon today, taking the national total to 15,641. In its preliminary update, the Health Ministry said the majority of the new cases are migrant workers staying in dormitories. 6 new cases are Singaporeans or permanent residents. More details will be shared by the ministry tonight. Chinese political leaders sending a strong signal that they believe their nation's coronavirus outbreak is under control. They've set a date for the annual session of the country's top legislature on 22nd May. The National People's Congress was rescheduled from early March, the first time the high-profile political meeting was postponed in decades. And from May 1st, some provinces in the Philippines will be moved from tight to looser quarantine. 9 provinces under the enhanced community quarantine will be downgraded to the general community quarantine. But Metro Manila stays on the list of areas under enhanced community quarantine, with measures being extended until mid-May. There are also over 1,300 healthcare workers among the infected cases in the country. And that's the latest from the CNE newsroom.
Currently, right now, in discussion with both Airbus and Boeing, looking at not only cancellations, but certainly many deferrals of deliveries, because they simply don't want these aircraft right now. We all know now that this recovery, when it comes, is not going to be a sharp V-shaped recovery. It's going to be a long U-shaped recovery. And it's going to be a long time before the air transport network is going to be back where it was before the crisis. We're talking about a year up to 2 years. So that's an awful long time for airlines to hold out, for the plane makers to hold out. They certainly need all the help they can get from governments, from their investors. And these governments and investors are also facing economic problems, are facing recession, shortages of cash all round. So it's going to be a long time before the industry has any chance of returning to what isn't going to be normal, but some sort of normal.
And of course, with airlines not using fuel as much, there's an effect on the oil industry. Saudi Arabia's revenues have fallen 24% since the start of the year. The world's largest oil exporter suffered a deficit of $9 billion in the first quarter. Global demand has collapsed and storage units are nearly full as factories stay shut because of the pandemic. OPEC and other producers have already agreed to cut production by almost 10% for the next 2 months as they try to support prices. More bad news as well, likely for Riyadh, with some US politicians calling on President Trump to stop imports of Saudi crude oil. This comes from the industry website Tanker Trackers. It shows 50 million barrels of Saudi crude on their way to the United States. Marine traffic shows at least 24 tankers en route around southern Africa, apparently heading for terminals in the Gulf of Mexico. That would be for Texas and Louisiana's refineries and storage sites. But as we say, with oil prices sinking to record lows, that's threatening US producers, and so some politicians in Washington want the vessels turned around. Vandana Hari is the founder and CEO of Vanda Insights, a company providing global oil market analysis. She says this will be a tough year for the Saudi government.
I was giving you a warning of this.
All of this oil is what had been produced when Saudi Arabia stepped up, was producing full tilt after the March 6th breakdown of the OPEC, non-OPEC alliance. And although that it's reversing course starting in May, it's probably too late to call back those tankers. Now, some people have suggested that perhaps Saudi Arabia could just use those tankers as floating storage. But the other point of view is that a lot of this oil is already sold. So it's not Saudi ownership anymore, but US refiners. So it has to come ashore. And, that could be another factor that is especially been hammering WTI prices much more in recent weeks relative to Brent, because the US is just absolutely overflowing. The storage shortage situation, especially acute there.
America can't tell those people no, because where the refinery is, it's not owned by America, it's owned by Saudi Arabia.
Is probably going to look worse, and the rest of the year is not looking too good either. So the Saudi government is going to be in a very tough spot. Probably raise more money, dip more into its reserves, but going forward, it's not a very good situation to be in, because you're just becoming increasingly more indebted, whether you are the government or Saudi Aramco.
To Lebanon, where violence has escalated during a second night of protests in the northern city of Tripoli. Demonstrators set fire to a bank and threw rocks at security personnel. They fired tear gas and rubber bullets back. Protests have been growing as the crisis-hit economy crumbles further under the coronavirus pressures. Zena Hoda with more from Tripoli.
Hunger and hopelessness are driving Lebanese to the streets. The economy is close to collapsing. Protesters vent their anger at banks for preventing people from accessing their savings, and the long-serving political elite is being blamed for mismanagement and corruption. In recent days, the local currency has sharply devalued against the dollar. There were casualties among protesters and soldiers during confrontations that began Monday night.
People went to the streets because there are no jobs. Children are asking their parents for food and they don't have money to buy them any. The young man who was martyred was a father. He had nothing to lose. If his daughter asks for food, what will he give her? He had nothing to lose.
Calls for a change in leadership are not new. A protest movement began in October, but the ruling elite has clung onto power.
Apart from a few, we have 128 criminals in parliament. They stole public funds and transferred billions of dollars outside Lebanon. Even the army soldier is oppressed like us. Their salary is now worth $300.
Officials acknowledge inflation has increased by 50%, and 45% of a nation of 6 million people live below the poverty line. But they haven't presented any plan to restore trust in the economy and fight corruption.
We are hungry. The revolution is against corruption. All officials say there's corruption. But what have they done? We don't see any thief in prison. Instead, they are shooting at the people.
Rival politicians who have been in power for decades deny allegations of corruption and are blaming each other for the state's near bankruptcy.
Government leaders are accusing their opponents of trying to topple them by tampering with financial stability that fuels the anger of anti-government protesters. The leadership's opponents say those in power are trying to hold them accountable for years of corruption.
The state's finances are under immense pressure. Lebanon has a huge debt to pay and not enough foreign currency. The government also doesn't have many friends abroad. These scenes could be a warning of what's to come.
That was Zainab's report from Tripoli. She's now back in Beirut for us. Zainab, what does the government do now? There would be no sign that these protests are going to die down.
No, the government is trying to put together an economic rescue plan. That's how they call it. But so far, they haven't presented that plan to the public. As we mentioned, the state is close to bankruptcy. This country spends more than it earns. There's a huge debt, and for the first time in Lebanon's history, it defaulted on the debt. Now, that there was a leaked document which really caused an outcry because the government was reportedly thinking of touching people's deposits in the banks. And of course, there are informal capital controls now. You cannot access your savings in the banks, that they were going to touch these deposits to fund the state. There was an outcry. Even politicians raised concerns because the Prime Minister said 2% of the deposits will be touched, and those 2% are the bank accounts of politicians and their cronies, accounts in the millions and billions of dollars. So this doesn't seem to be an option. A few weeks ago, the Prime Minister and the President, they invited the International Support Group for Lebanon ambassadors from Western nations, Arab nations, and they appealed for financial assistance. They told them, please unlock the funds, billions of dollars in aid that you promised us in the past. And the answer really has been, we are not unblocking aid and we're not bailing Lebanon out unless there are structural and economic reforms. Politicians are reluctant to do that because if you do that, they lose control of the state's resources, which they've been accused of using for political gain. So the only option seems to be going to the International Monetary Fund. And again, politicians are reluctant to do that for two reasons. First of all, the austerity measures will hurt the poor, and the austerity measures will hurt the politicians. Again, it's all about reforms. If you reform the public sector, you trim the public sector, because according to international financial institutions, there's a lot of waste in the state public sector. That means politicians can no longer appoint their supporters in the government. So it's a very, very difficult situation for the government at this point in time. Lebanon is at a crossroads, and anger and desperation is only growing as the value of people's money, it's losing its value, it's losing its purchasing power.
Zainab Hodder with the update from the streets of Beirut there. Thank you, Zainab. The United States reported its first coronavirus death less than 3 months ago. Now the number of deaths there from COVID-19 has passed that of American soldiers killed in the Vietnam War. 58,000 died in that near 2-decade conflict, and now, as we see on the Johns Hopkins University tracker, the number in white, 58,355 deaths, with the number in red, more than 1 million people now infected, the bulk of them over in major cities on the East Coast. David Elizondo was in one of them, New York, which is the epicenter of the US outbreak.
A coordinated flyover by U.S. Air Force and Navy planes over New York City. A display of gratitude for healthcare workers and first responders here in what is the epicenter of the U.S. coronavirus crisis. A crisis that has put more than 20 million Americans out of work in only 1 month, and at one point had more than 300 million Americans under stay-at-home orders, transforming even the busiest cities like New York into ghost towns. The crisis has now hit a new milestone, over 1 million cases in the U.S. President Trump is accused of being slow to take COVID-19 seriously. In late January, when the first cases were in the U.S., he said it was under control and repeated similar sentiments for many weeks.
The risk to the American people remains very low.
Fast forward 2 months, and that forecast has proven to be spectacularly wrong. As the country and economy shut down, Trump and America as a whole were forced to face this stark reality.
There were numerous missed opportunities in the long term investing in public health. The budgets for public health have been significantly decreased over the years, and this whittling away of our public health system has really weakened our ability to respond in the more short term.
While most of those million confirmed cases in the U.S. have been relatively mild, many thousands more have not. More than 50,000 lives have been lost to COVID-19, and many thousands more expected. On Tuesday, Trump was asked about his earlier predictions in the light of the new milestone.
Well, it will go down to zero ultimately, and you have to understand when it comes to cases, we do much more testing than anybody else. So we could go to some of these other countries, you know, as an example, China. If you test, you're going to show many more cases.
The United States, and particularly New York, are a long way from being over this health crisis. And with persistent worries about large gatherings, the streets could remain mostly empty through the end of the year, leaving time for people to ponder questions, such as when will this be over? What will America be like when it is? And what went wrong? Gabriel Zondo, Al Jazeera, New York.
They're sending the toxic meat here.
Protect the Children charities sound the alarm about child abuse during lockdowns. And one of the latest on plans for a large-scale prisoner swap in Yemen.
We've got some cool, wet and windy weather now piling into western parts of Europe. A good westerly flow in our weather. You can see a fair amount of cloud into those central parts as well. We are seeing much needed rainfall then pushing over towards parts of Germany, Poland and easing up further eastwards. So we are going to see some very wet weather pushing through from time to time. Some cloud and rain there just around central parts pushing down across Austria, Hungary, down towards the Balkans.
Where is it going to get summer anyway?
Just pushing over into that western side of Russia. Cooling up.
We're still getting snow and stuff.
It's not so long ago we were getting up into the high teens, so something of a change has taken place here. Cooling up over towards the west as well. London barely getting up to around 14 degrees Celsius. So that cloud and rain makes its way from the Atlantic.
Stuff
We'll see
coming
west
from
weather
America.
once again moving across parts of Spain and Portugal. France seeing some rather lively showers.
Making those locusts.
16 Celsius Paris, we're getting up to 13 in London on Thursday. With that cool air in place. Central parts seeing some of that western weather. Central parts of the Med though, down towards the southeast, not too bad. Here it is largely dry and fine, as is the case too across northern parts of Africa. Still got a few showers just around northern parts of Morocco, easing away into northern Algeria and northern parts of Tunisia.
The time had come for the
Airbus has reported a first quarter loss of $500 million. The chief executive of the European aerospace company warns the coronavirus pandemic is the gravest crisis the industry has ever known. The outbreak's also badly hit Saudi Arabia. Its oil revenues have fallen 24% since the start of the year. The kingdom, which is the world's largest oil exporter, has slipped into a $9 billion deficit in its first quarter budget deficit. Excuse me. And protesters and security forces have fought for a second night in Lebanon's northern city of Tripoli. Frustrations growing over the crisis-hit economy, which has worsened during the coronavirus pandemic. China's annual National People's Congress, which was delayed by 2 months because of the pandemic, will now be held in 3 weeks, May 22nd. Around 3,000 delegates from across China will gather in Beijing to pass legislation and to unveil key economic targets for the year. It's an event that lasts around 10 days. It is one of China's most important political meetings. Sarah Clark's in Hong Kong with more on China's decision to go ahead with the meeting.
It was scheduled to go ahead back in March the 5th, on March the 5th, and the government back in February made the decision to postpone or delay that particular gathering.
That's when the coronababies posted and stated they were having coronababies.
And a number of these legislators,
after Keith called himself the Messiah on March 4th, said he was going to attack China. They were going to get infected.
At that particular time. Now we've got 3,000
dumbasses are going to get all their people together.
legislators who will attend this gathering in Beijing on May 22, but we also have a huge number of staff and delegations that will join those legislators, and we're talking about 5,000 people. Now, clearly the meeting has been allowed to go ahead because China's number of coronavirus cases has been falling, and in Beijing we've had no local cases for the last 36 consecutive days, and this is simply due to the capital imposing some tough quarantine restrictions. Those travelling to the capital, we're talking about domestic travellers, those coming from anywhere across China into Beijing must go into 14 days of quarantine, and anyone coming into Beijing from Wuhan and from overseas, it's a 21-day quarantine scenario. Now, the government has also imposed some new social etiquette rules, which they'll introduce on June the 1st, and they include when in public, everyone must cover their mouth when sneezing, there's been no eating on public transport, and masks must be worn by anyone in public if you're sick. But clearly this announcement on Wednesday that the National People's Congress meeting will go ahead on May 22 is a sign that China's trying to send to the rest of the world that life is returning to normal.
Child protection agencies are worried that millions of children under lockdown in Asia are at risk of domestic violence. 7 charities, including Save the Children and World Vision, are asking governments to prioritise the safety of children who may be in danger. Many Asian nations, including India and Singapore, have reported sharp rises in domestic violence during the pandemic. Anandit Roy Chowdhury is the Director of Programs and Policy at Save the Children India. He told us child protection services are reporting a record number of young people calling them for help.
I think this is an unprecedented time. And
so many dads and so forth losing their jobs.
Seen anything like this before. We have now noticed that in the last, if you compare the pre-lockdown period and the current scenario, there is a rise of 50% in terms of domestic violence against children through our child line, which is a government mechanism where children can record their complaints over a telephone call.
I mean, the same thing's happening to their moms.
1098. And that has been just unprecedented. We have never seen this many cases of domestic violence against children, and we still don't know where to go with it. So it's a pandemic of a different sort. While it's a health pandemic globally and people are dying of the coronavirus, but what is also true is that there is sharp rise in violence against children, which we are experiencing in India and many other countries in Asia. The number of cases that we are seeing now are only the ones that are being reported, which means that these are the ones that have probably gone to a certain extent that children feel the need to reach out to the child line mechanism.
US Vice President Mike Pence has been criticised for not wearing a mask during a visit to a medical centre. Pence visited the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota on Tuesday. The research centre later said on Twitter that he had been informed of the mandatory mask policy, though that tweet has since been deleted. Brazil's president says he can't work miracles to prevent coronavirus deaths. Jair Bolsonaro dismissed questions about Brazil's Covid-19 cases now surpassing China's infections. The president had earlier described coronavirus.
Nobody's gonna pass China's.
He's called for businesses to open even if it allows the
China cremated all their people.
Brazil's reported more than 5,000 deaths and
everybody's asymptomatic eating a pig and pork and beef.
I'm sorry, what do you want me to do? I am Messiah, but I don't do miracles.
On to some other stories. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has named a new oil minister who was once indicted in the US for drugs trafficking. His appointment ends an era of military control of the state oil firm and comes at a time when there's a major drop in petroleum prices. More from our Latin America editor, Listeria.
These cows are having a field day, eating vegetables that many ordinary Venezuelans can't. Farmers in La Grita are having to throw away their produce because there's no petrol to take it to market.
This is my bread and butter, the only thing I have to support my family.
President Nicolas Maduro blames U.S. economic sanctions for an acute petrol shortage that's causing havoc. Now he's removed the president of the state oil company, PDVSA, and replaced him with a key confidant, Tariq El Aissami, who's been indicted by the U.S. Justice Department for alleged drug trafficking.
How do they not have oil?
This comes just days after the Trump administration gave Chevron Corp, the last major U.S. oil company operating in Venezuela, its marching orders.
The Treasury Department has announced a new narrowly limited license for 7 months, which will allow companies that are operating there to begin their wind-down process.
The White House is hoping that more of the same sanctions, but under worsening circumstances, will finally convince the army to oust Maduro.
That will only happen when the military feels confident that they'll maintain their corporate power, their physical integrity, and their economic interests. And we're a long way from that, because, for example, the head of the military is on Washington's blacklist. It's an inconsistent strategy.
Meanwhile, an NGO that tracks political prisoners reports that at least 70 people have been detained in the last 5 weeks since a nationwide COVID-19 lockdown was declared. That includes 11 active and retired members of the National Guard involved in an alleged foiled uprising last week. Opposition Deputy Juan Guanipa says Maduro is using the quarantine to further social control.
He manipulates absolutely
Everybody is.
with the impression that everything is under control when the worst is still to come.
For now, there are no signs of a political solution that could ease economic sanctions and hardships. But with a crisis of such magnitude, even the unthinkable is possible. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera has learned the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross has brought forward plans for a mass prisoner exchange in Yemen. Could happen in days and as part of a ceasefire proposed by the UN Special Envoy. About 1,000 prisoners are expected to be released in the first batch. Our diplomatic editor James Bays has this exclusive report.
A mass prisoner exchange was first proposed in the Stockholm Agreement in December 2018. All sides agreed to the idea, but it never actually happened. Now it's being revived as part of a peace plan proposed by the UN Special Envoy Martin Griffiths. He said he believed that plan was close to fruition when he spoke to the UN Security Council last week. He didn't reveal that arrangements had now advanced for a prisoner exchange to be organised by the UN and by the International Committee of the Red Cross.
We were asked to organize the release during this pandemic of COVID, and we had to balance the interest, the humanitarian interest of the people detained, the fact that they could go back home, see their family after years of detention, and the risk we were taking as humanitarian operators to be infected, but also the risk of the detainees to be infected. So balancing those interests, we decided that we would go for it.
You seem to have everything in place. What needs to happen for this exchange to take place?
I would say that almost everything is in place. What we need now it's a final alignment of the three parties involved in the release, the government of Saudi Arabia, the Ansarullah, and the government of Yemen. We are there. We still need a couple of days to be ready, but we need this button to be pushed, and for this we need an alignment.
And just to be clear on the timeline, you mentioned a couple of days. This could happen within days, potentially.
Potentially, yes.
UN sources tell me the actual prisoners for the first stage of a transfer have been identified. There are about 1,000 of them.
Now, not to alarm you, but a large asteroid is heading towards Earth in the coming hours. But astronomers say the space rock won't be colliding with our planet. It will, however, get close enough for scientists to actually study it. And Gallagher has this report from Florida.
When a small asteroid broke up over Siberia in 2013, the ensuing shockwave injured over 1,000 people and caused extensive damage. It was a reminder to space agencies across the world of the dangers asteroids can pose. The asteroid now heading our way has been classified as a potentially hazardous object. Scientists say 1998 OR2 is not a threat. It's travelling at 30,000 kilometres an hour and is at least 2 kilometres wide. will pass by at a distance of 6 million kilometers.
You don't have to deal with it with fear, you have to deal with it with the science. So people should not be afraid of asteroids. People should be encouraged to assess the risk of these asteroids and to follow these asteroid research programs, and most importantly, to maintain these asteroid research programs in place.
Programs like NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART program, aim to tackle potential threats in the future. It's one of many programs around the world that not only track large asteroids, but have potential solutions to redirect them. The Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico is one of the facilities that tracks asteroids using sophisticated radar. Scientists here are already tracking the Apophis asteroid due to skirt the Earth in 2029. The head of planetary radar says their research is vital.
Without the planetary radar observations or very extensive optical observations, we would actually have to get prepared that it could hit the Earth in 2029. So now we know that we don't have to do that, and we can use those resources for something else.
This latest asteroid has been tracked for the past 2 decades. And for amateur and professional astronomers alike, it's being greeted with excitement and not fear. NASA scientists say they've tracked more than 90% of near-Earth objects that pose a global threat. Thankfully, 1998 OR2 isn't one of them, but it will be close enough to watch on a telescope like this. In terms of the visual universe, this is a close shave. But a celestial event that will be seen as a slow-moving star. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Miami, Florida.
Finally, the Indian actor Irfan Khan has died after having cancer. The 53-year-old actor began his career in Indian television and Bollywood movies, but he then did star in several Hollywood movies as well, such as Life of Pi, Jurassic Park, and Slumdog Millionaire. Let's take you to the headlines on Al Jazeera. Airbus has reported a first quarter loss of $500 million. The chief executive of the European aerospace company warns that the coronavirus pandemic is the gravest crisis the industry has ever known. 130,000 Airbus workers worldwide have already been warned to expect job cuts if
restrictions on personal movement will also be eased. As a first step, people will be able to travel up to 100 kilometers from their home, except in work or family emergencies. Private gatherings of up to 10 people will also be allowed, but many public spaces that tend to draw large crowds, including movie theaters and concert venues, will remain closed for now. Sports events and festivals with more than 5,000 people are postponed until at least September. As part of its strategy for exiting lockdown, the government aims to carry out 700,000 tests a week. Plans for a smartphone tracing app are also on the table, but lawmakers have yet to debate the app, which has raised privacy concerns.
As we're hearing there, widespread public mask wearing a key part of France's exit strategy as the country starts to lift lockdown. And while the government says that enough reusable cloth masks will be available, a lot of people have started to take matters into their own hands. Fabric and craft shops were allowed to reopen already last week, and since then they've been overwhelmed with customers, as Alison Sargent reports.
Before stores are even open, the line outside of this craft store stretches down the block, some waiting to buy one final key supply. Je suis de tissu, mais il me manque toujours l'élément élastique. Voilà. Donc quand j'ai vu que c'était ouvert aujourd'hui, je fonce.
J'ai fermé tous les tubes qui me restaient, mais pas d'élastique.
Elastic has become a precious commodity, going out of stock in stores around the country. Vous préparez quoi? Des sacs d'élastique de 10 mètres. Enfin, de 10 mètres pour que ça aille plus vite.
Il y a déjà pas mal de monde à attendre, mais ça va être ouvert un peu plus tôt pour pouvoir répondre à la demande assez rapidement.
Craft and fabric stores in France were allowed to reopen at the end of last week, so people can buy supplies to make their own masks.
C'est bien ça, ah oui, ça, il n'y a pas de souci, vous pouvez faire des masques sans aucun souci.
Store owners say it was necessary to deal with the high demand.
J'ai été harcelée d'appels, de mails, de personnes qui commandaient par téléphone, qui commandaient sur mon site internet.
For some, it may be tedious, but craft enthusiasts are thrilled.
De ressortir de la machine à coudre, on est à 15 jours, et d'étudier le résultat aussi.
the second video, actually third video, they've instead of saying duplicate other state, they can't process it. So I'll just have to do a screen recording of it. It's a screen live. It's really interesting because yesterday's memory, good old fake book, I changed my cover picture. What does that say? Alright. Alright. Good old Mark House. With their bullshit. Right. They went from the Wuhan One Cup, One Life on January 25th to another 92 days later. You're on the third cup, kids. We're only supposed to be one cup. Now we're on the third cup. Right. That's how retarded these fucking people are. Gravitational and magnetical. These guys are Darwinism, Darwinian, Newtonian physics retarded people. It takes less than a second to overcome the coronavirus, right? And that's why this motherfucking fool is sick. And that's why homie's sick still for 4 months. Ain't got no better. Like dude says, it's watered down if you try to put the cup of fucking death in the motherfucking another cup of something with water and try to drink that to re-entrain it. I won't do nothing. Oh, he has a son. But I thought you're an alien. That can't catch it. But wait, you're infected. Alright, this is how retarded that shit is. Keep drinking Drano, kids. Right. Keep drinking the Drano. It's just so hilarious. Right. Getting people sick, folks. You got East Cloud. A little, the coyote pack. These people make me laugh. Even your dead mama can be got, fool. That's what people don't understand. Nothing ever dies. Even people's supposed family members as dead can be talked to or got at. Right. Non-locality, right? Yo, those clowns. Yeah. Don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, kids. Someone just might fucking melt that motherfucker down and reconstitute it into something, right? Just might melt your shit down. Do you think you're tough and shit? Motherfuckers make me laugh. Hurt my family, nigga.
Somebody likes to take pictures of people's family members, right? Say they got long arms and stuff. Okay. I'll show you.
Show you some shit, man. I'll show you what we do.
Don't pay me no attention. Just remember, for y'all to see me, you gotta unblock me from being able to see you. So, say what you was. So I think it's funny. Let's see who is your family. It's a non-locality, morphogenic field. Don't gotta be in place.
That gene pool ain't too healthy, kid. Should we help them die or help them stay here longer? Because it seems like all y'all just like to drink and do drugs. And run away from yourself and keep it here. I'm sure that's your kid. All you close people. Trained by Marines. Delta. Trained by a medic with a black scorpion. Twisted, his tail twisted to the right. The medic's the worst thing to get attacked by. Especially one that knows how to do things I do, because I'll keep your punch ass alive. Unless you kill yourself. And that's all you people doing with your social suicide. Thinking that's cool. Social suicide. And your little bling bling gold chains. How many kids in Africa and shit get fucked off for that shit? You stupid ass Pelican. With the supposed rap life you guys got here in America. Or the supposed Judah. The people were there, huh? The fake ass motherfuckers. It's about money, that's all you see. Every shocker and anything fuck up on these people. That's why they act like children when you ask them a question. As simple as show the proof of concept.
These people got kids.
Your family is here. Pussy boy ass motherfuckers. Keep drinking your Kool-Aid.
As long as you run from the fucking caustic soda and lie, you fucking crackhead ass motherfuckers. Learn how to read. Ain't nothing that I spell misspell. Alright. I'm trying to show stuff about my supposed family. Please, child.
Fucking idiots, traffic killers, me.
You make me laugh.
Traffic killer is the original name of Ezekiel. A fallen angel. Nigga. Right channel. The Ace Watcher. Right hand man, a motherfucking Lucifer, nigga.
Cause of what?
But he turned.
Taking motherfucking plasma hits and motherfucking plasma weed.
I know all about constellations and minerals and insects.
Through plasma water. Through plasma bomb. Huh. Can't buy silver to make my product. Pure silver. But I do liner. I actually create plasma. So, still never answered the question that I asked you. Where's the fourth phase of water?
Proof of concept in the model.
This is dumbass shit.
That's alright, fuckboy.
Let's see, who you got? That's family. So you guys want to play the family tag game shit? You can play. Then, you know, Carmen. do that. We all got pictures of everybody so I can non-locality.
I had cancer. Do you ever heal over cancer and shit like I did with my mom? Sad ass motherfuckers. Huh. The video they wouldn't let up yesterday. Alright. This ain't gonna be processed. We don't do a live screen.
You've been saved by the great time.
Oh, fucking quiche.
You may think this is suffering. No. It is salvation. Universal scales tip toward balance because of your sacrifice.
Sounds like quiche, don't it?
Smile. For even in death, you have become children of Thanos.
Wake the fuck up, idiots. This shit's crazy what these motherfuckers got here. We got that Jim Jones Kool-Aid. Don't be silly now. Put you in the target. There ain't no motherfucking limit. Ain't nothing but protects you if I turn my shit on you.
Intrinsic 12/28/18 here with Brother Gary.
Yeah, for your karma,
He's just come
shit
back from the
become
doctor.
be brought upon yourself.
The doctor explained to him that what he'd come in, did you say a year ago?
Yeah,
His first intrinsic data
Y'all
field
sick.
scanning,
They're a bunch of
what the
plasma
printout
energy.
explained, through... You explain.
to it show, well, the first reading was showing there was something wrong with my pancreas here, and that's the reason I'm in today.
So we're dowsers. I can help that sickness, or I cannot help the sickness, just like you. Now I can help the sickness become not a sickness anymore. Or like with you, I can help it become not even a sickness, but morph into something even more deadlier. But it's all in your own karma. It's just evolving things, right? People find that they ain't even sick. It's medicine from the doctors. They're addicted to.
Today, because I was in the hospital for acute pancreatitis, and then they did find a mass on my pancreas, so I went to have it.
And we told him before he even had all this information. He used to go to AA and try to grab the people and help them. And I stopped drinking 5 years ago.
The seizure yesterday for to see what the mass was, so they took a biopsy and they said they would let me know within 7
And that's
days.
why the man came back.
It wasn't really malignant or
Like,
benign,
holy shit.
but your wife, Maria, so gracefully told me that it's not benign. I mean, it's not malicious. So we're going from there.
We're working on a way of seeing if we can get this brother through his own intrinsic data fields, his own self, who had told him this was coming, or could be coming, if plans of actions weren't taken to change in those steps, then this would be the outcome. So now we're trying to figure out through his own self a way that would work with the self on this plane together to bring the body back into balance homeopathically.
But I gotta say that he had taken plan of action and he had changed his behavior and certain things that we pointed out, but actually what is being addressed in this new reading is that
the allopathic medicine
is not being conducive to what it's wanting to be addressed. So in this case, by scanning his pancreas and the informational fields that are being emanated from his pancreas, the intrinsic data field of candida had come up, and a severe form of inflammation in the pancreas had come up. So when I asked in the homeopathic remedies what remedies would benefit him for this specific occasion, and this is a new section that we had added to his scan, but you can see Candida intrinsic data fields in the pancreas at 36.9, and this is a negative.
And that is because the doctors had given him
an antibiotic and the antibiotic and also the gabapentin and also the Valium, which is...
The Valium is coming up here as diazepam compress, and a diazepam compress is not compatible with him. It's a 50%, and the generic one of the generic names of it is Valium, like brother is saying. So his higher self had pointed me out to indicate to him that actually the Valium that he may be taking for these procedures is actually...
Every procedure, they'll give me the Valium, like 3 Valium.
They actually administrate to him the Valium, and that Valium is actually counterproductive to the issue that they're trying to address. It's actually making it worse, because the Valium is a form of feeding that candida, right, as a pharmaceutical drug. So we're trying, then what I asked was, in the homeopathic realm, what would be beneficial for you? And it have suggested the signatory frequencies of pepper. I had looked this one up. I need to I need to bring it up in the phone because I'm not familiar with the name. These are homeopathic remedies.
Is it plumber?
But you gotta understand, when we're talking about homeopathic remedies, what it's really interesting how everything is connected together. What are we trying to address here? Your pancreas, right? Exactly. So look at what the homeopathic remedies we're looking at are the homeopathic remedies that are in the P and the R.
Okay.
If we would be looking at your heart, the homeopathic remedies that we would be looking at are homeopathic remedies that would start with H. Okay. Here, because we're looking into your pancreas,
start with a P.
All these homeopathic remedies that are elements in nature and resonances that are present in nature as a form of essence, they're going to be conducive to your pancreas, and they start with P. Funny enough, right? How everything is coded.
Okay.
But here the pepper, so diazepam, and here it's called Piper methysticum. Piper methysticum. It's a family from the kava. So kava, it's for neurotransmitters too, nervous system.
Stuff that
that would be replacing your gamma, your GABA, the GABA painters that you're taking. But it's actually, this is a kava. This is a natural root that it occurs in Hawaii and different parts in the world.
That have been trying to have ceremonies here.
It's a tincture of fresh root. Yes, and I actually had taken it time ago for mood balancing.
Yeah.
But it does help with the overall nervous system.
Like what's wrong with my whole left side.
That is what it suggested to you, and it's actually saying that...
Good old skillerized weather. Midwest getting rain. Hailballs and shit. About to be fucking me. Huh. Y'all hacking my phone? Just gotta set the crystal on now. Quartz and the titanium crystals. And do a couple more glazings. That's finished. Epicness. do a screen recording of yesterday. This thing's powerful. It reacts with crystals like hardcore. Look at that weather. Now see here in the valley, you're gonna make it snow. Midwest. Scalerized weather, folks. I'll suck California dry. Fire season's gonna be bad. Love and light. See, Phil unable to convert video even though it plays. I'll get that up. I'll watch it today while I do my work. See if it blocks out or not. Anyhow, love and light.